Welcome back, my friends, to the Predictive Playbook. And this is a show that airs Monday through Fridays. We usually try to get it started around 4:45, but all of us that appear on this show have other commitments, other shows to appear on, research to get done, phone calls to be made, and sometimes we don't start out exactly on time. But I'm glad that you guys all waited around for us because it would be a bummer if something dumb got in the way of this great show, especially being on a Friday. And I have my Dogfish IPA right here. Let's see. Now you can see it. Real beer. So I want you to know I'm taking this Friday show seriously. um, Rob, we're going to talk about the NBA, and welcome to the show. How's your week gone?
It's been good, John. The NBA's been kind for the last, I would say, 2.5 weeks, especially. But, it all adds up to long-term over at Wager Talk, the number one NBA handicapper year to date, which would be since January 1st, and also number one in profit since the beginning of the season, 2020. So, I was on today on the Wager Talk Today show with one of the co-owners of Wager Talk, Lawrence Presman, and he mentioned that to go back to back over at Wager Talk and be the number one handicapper in any sport. He was trying to recall if it had happened before. He thinks Dave Koken probably did it in college football. And he believes Tony Finn, our cohort here, did it in NFL back to back. But, if I can hang on here, it would be back to back. And if I go back to 18, I think it might be 3 straight. 18, 19, and 20
Wow.
NBA number ones over at Wager Talk. So NBA's been kind. I cannot argue. Baseball got off to a little bit of a rocky start, had a couple winners the other night. Try and reverse course here and get that going. And, of course, myself and Matt Josephs, we do a FCS football show each and every Friday. That will air this afternoon as well. And FCS is in the playoffs, John. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of an exciting football. There's so much going on, right? I mean, the draft is next week, so there's a lot going on in sports right now still. But NBA's been good to me.
Yeah, it sure is. And UFC, I guess, is kind of having a Super Bowl by analogy tomorrow night. I'm actually going to have a guest on the Predictive Playbook for a Saturday show talking about that. And as I've been quite honest about, I don't know that much about UFC. I know that it's a very violent sport. It's enjoyable to watch. I'm always in great admiration of their athletic abilities and the hand speed. That's the takeaway when I first watched the best in the world do that. Their hand speed is just lightning fast, and some people don't like the violent part of it being in an octagon and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? You got to appreciate their desire and their passion and their athleticism, and it's really something else. So this guy is really, I would say, one of the best out there for UFC. So I'm going to learn a ton. It reminds me of when I went on the show with one of the Wager Talk co-founders, Marco D'Angelo. He's been raising horses, race horses, since 1986, and knows just everything there is to know about the Arkansas Derby, which was the last prep race for the Kentucky Derby. And that race is actually only 2 weeks away.
Right.
So there's a lot of exciting things coming up on the horizon, too. But I guess, Rob, it comes down to this. We have some great things happening right before our very eyes tonight. And one of these is I guess it's the word is a myriad. I guess Tony would probably use that big word, a myriad of teams right now that are going through their own little gauntlet. Boston had to play Phoenix last night. Came away with an unexpectedly easy win. Phoenix was coming off of back-to-back, having defeated the Sixers the night before. Now Boston on back-to-back nights has to play Brooklyn. And, it's not really just the Suns that are going through this stuff.
Right.
The Sixers played in Milwaukee last night, and we had the players, at least the players I wanted playing, and that game was never close. I mean, if you covered that number, that truly was a gift from above. Because they were losing by 19 with a little bit more than 6 minutes to go. And then it ended up being a 7. So I guess if you were fortunate enough to cover that one, that was pretty good. Um, but this game here at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, is set to start at 7:30, and Durant is the talk this morning. I didn't have time to check this, but I know you have the pulse of the injury list and the player status like no other. But Durant may return from this latest injury tonight. So has that been confirmed or not confirmed so far?
It's been confirmed that he won't play.
Okay.
He's going to sit out again tonight. So as soon as that happened, the line fell. I think Brooklyn had been listed. They moved up from 4.5 to 5. It's now down to 3 at last I checked. But Kevin Durant won't play in this contest, among other guys that won't play. On the Boston side, real quick, John, Kemba Walker, he hasn't played the back end of a back-to-back all season long. He won't do so tonight. Kemba played almost 37 minutes in that win last night, so he won't be there for Boston, nor will Jaylen Brown, who sat out last night for the second consecutive game, and this will be his third with bursitis in his shoulder, which sounds painful and probably the reason why he's sitting. I think you'll get Jason Tatum and Evan Fournier, the guard they acquired from Orlando, who had been out due to health and safety protocols for quite a while. Looks like he's going to return here tonight as well. So Boston's got a couple on the bench. The Nets have always had a couple on the bench. Looks like Kyrie and the gang of 8 that he's been leading for the last couple of games will be what Brooklyn goes with tonight with a day of rest. And, of course, as you mentioned, Boston, tough game last night and back-to-back right up against the Nets. So we'll see.
Yeah, it should be. I really don't have a feel for this game because the players aren't playing. It's hard to get. Some of these games are just difficult to get your hands around because the players aren't playing that you normally accustomed seeing on the floor. And Durant is one of those that is actually opposite. He's only played, I think, 24 games this year. So when he does come back, it's going to be difficult to determine how that's going to impact the chemistry of even on the offensive end because the Nets aren't known for their defensive prowess. They're known for scoring. So it is, there are a lot of games where when I start thinking like that, I just want to pass. But it is definitely the highlight game of the evening because there's so many ramifications involved. The Nets are trying to track down the Sixers, for the number 1 seed. And then I say that to myself, Rob, and then I well, wait a minute. The NBA, the teams are the franchises are playing like the seed doesn't really matter. Most notably, the Lakers, who wouldn't even host a series at this point. So, I would be interested in your thoughts on that. Like, does it matter to the Lakers what seed they are? Does it matter to Brooklyn what seed they are? Does it matter more to the Sixers? I think they at least seem to want to be the number 1 seed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you picked the 2 teams right away that just don't care, John. Brooklyn is more interested in being healthy, even though they could get their way back into the number 1 seed. I really don't think it matters to them if they have to go on the road one time with Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving. I don't think it would matter. And the same with the Lakers. I don't think that LeBron James and Anthony Davis, to them, I don't think it matters. It can be difficult in the West. I might retract that a little bit because you're in the Western Conference, and if you're never going to play a home series, that makes it tough. I mean, you have to almost wrap up your opening couple series really quick in that instance. But again, I do think that that team is just more interested in getting in and getting healthy than they are whether or not they play at home. Even though as bettors, we might find, fading the Lakers to be a thing to do in the playoffs if LA has to play on the road. For the 76ers, we know that they really would love to have home court. Home court's been good to them for 2 years running now. And I think Milwaukee, who actually showed last night, they're making a run for that home court. They're now 2.5 games behind, I think. And for Milwaukee, a team that's failed the past couple of seasons, home court means a lot in the playoffs. So those teams. And then when you get to the others like Boston, it was interesting, John. I read a quote from Jason Tatum, power forward for the Celtics, who seemed almost disinterested with where the Celtics are in the playoff race. He said, that changes every day. Maybe I'll check out where we are in the playoff race a week from now, which led me to believe that, and credit to your guest yesterday on one of your shows before we came on, Fox 29 affiliate here in Philly, who said that he thought the Sixers would treat it as a throwaway game, which they did, which Doc admitted to after the game. And I just wonder if Boston doesn't feel that same way here in Brooklyn tonight, even though they've been surging. They have to get their bodies healthy. That's why Kemba doesn't play tonight. That's why Jaylen Brown doesn't play tonight. And Jason Tatum, I should also mention, who's playing on a bad ankle for 2 games this week. He has gutted it out. You check the injury report, you see questionable next to Tatum's name. He played Monday, I think it was. He then played again last night. But the results weren't good, John. He's 3 for 17 identically in both of those games. So now 6 for 34 this week on a bad ankle trying to force it. So you wonder in a back-to-back situation tonight, could he perform any better or does he perform worse? Or, if he performs the same, it's terrible. So Boston has their issues as well. And we could go up and down these 1 through 11, so to speak, playoff seedings right now and just nitpick certain areas of every team. So that's why you got to be on top. The NBA, more than any sport, I think you have to be on top of on a minute-by-minute basis.
Yeah, and you have situations like this too, Rob. The Celtics and the Hawks are tied for 5th place in the standings. If they could move up to 4th, then they get a home series, and you would think that has some kind of value. And then I wonder too with the chemistry of Boston. I've wondered this, and you know it from previous shows that when they were going through that slide, it didn't look like anybody really liked playing with each other. And then you have you mentioned Brown is playing on an injured foot, bad wheel. And you have a guy like Kemba Walker who simply demands that he is not going to play on back-to-back nights. So if you're him looking at Kemba Walker and you're, giving it your heart and soul and trying to plow your way through a game with a injured wheel, the locker room can't be like really, hugs and kisses in there right now, but they do have a coach that can manage that.
Yeah, they're a unique situation, John, where, Kemba Walker in the playoffs last year had a bad knee injury last year, didn't play a lot of games, didn't look like himself in the playoffs when he played. And I think they made a organizational decision this year that they were going to get that. They paid a lot of money for him from Charlotte. And they made that decision to where they just weren't going in a condensed season as is. They weren't going to push him. They were going to allow him the necessary rest time to kind of heal that knee over the course of the season and then have him ready for the playoffs where they want to make their run. Kemba last night, like I say, went 37 minutes and was the leading scorer. Looked really good last night. I haven't seen Kemba Walker look that good in a long time. I think he had 32 points. So with him, I think it's organizational decision. Jaylen Brown is a guy that they really, I think, because he was playing so well, are kind of coddling right now with that bursitis in the shoulder. They just can't force him out there. And Jason Tatum has been the one guy on the bad ankle to go ahead and go out there, but it hasn't really benefited the team, despite the fact they've won. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it has benefited the team just having him there, but his statistical lines at the end of games haven't been good, or Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum quality. I know that Kemba is a decent friend of Jaylen Brown. They played together on a couple of off-season teams. That's why Boston went to get Kemba Walker to begin with. So I think as far as those guys and their cohesion, I think they're good. You worry, though, about these other 2 teams, especially the Nets with Harden and Durant. And, we're coming to the close of the season. We're about 12, 13 games away. James Harden's return is nowhere in sight as we speak, and Durant won't go tonight. So how many games will these guys possibly have to – you talked about just having Kyrie and Kevin Durant on the floor at the same time. And the third piece, James Harden, will come along later on. Maybe they'll use an opening playoff series. I'm not sure. But their cohesion would be the one that you'd worry about the most. They need a few games to get it together.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, welcome, Steve, Merril,
Hey
and Tony
guys.
Finn. And Tony Finn was in the studio waiting room. I guess he thought that he was being punished because I didn't see him. And I did see the message that I got on the Slacker. What is that called anyway? When somebody sends you a message in Slack, does that mean you're slacked? I still don't
I'll
understand.
come up with something. I'll come up with something overnight, and it'll start trending immediately from this program.
Slack
Well,
got
that's what we
bought
want.
out.
We want trending.
Yeah, exactly.
They got bought out a few months ago, didn't they? By some big time, like one of those big companies bought Slack like 3-4 months ago. So I guess they're pretty big. It seems like a simple concept, but we use it a lot every day. As
I'm
you guys
certain
know.
I'm certain it was the government, so we're being watched and listened to right now.
No, it was
Big brother.
Salesforce. I think it was one of those business guys. I think it was Salesforce, one of those big boys. But they're all owned by the government. So yeah, you're correct as well, Tony Finn. They're all
Wow,
in
so
bed
I
together.
guess I can't sort of like patenting a phrase that says "get the slack out of here."
Yeah, you'll probably hear
That's way too
from
clean
legal.
for me.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, welcome, gentlemen. I hope you have I have my beverage.
I do too.
I think everybody does today. I have one right here. I think we're
Yeah.
working on Friday happy hour.
I'm
This
going
is
straight
tequila. I
vodka
added
with the
some
huge
orange
mug.
juice.
I got the pint of vodka here, gin,
Yeah.
whatever.
I had
right out the
I got to
bottle.
put a lime in it, right, Rob? It looks like a drink of a lime's in it.
Right.
That's what the
There's
card
lime
counter.
juice, I think.
Goodness.
I watched 21 was on again the other night, and I read the book when it came out, and the movie's not really based on the true story. They embellished a lot, but I caught the last hour or so and ended up watching the whole damn thing again. And the eye in the sky is like they were looking at the table, the MIT students, and he's drinking a water with a lime to try to make it look like he's drinking was one of the tricks they were doing, and other little things. But
It's a great
I wasn't
story.
planning on watching as much of it as I did. I always get hooked into that movie and movies like that.
Mm.
I actually had the pleasure of being introduced to one of those guys that was on the original team. And believe it or not, I can't remember his name. I met him at a golf tournament. And the story he told it had nothing to do with the movie, but it was in Canada because he couldn't play anywhere else in the United States because of the eye in the sky. But he got in a situation where it wasn't so good. And I'll leave it at that because I don't know if it would be. It's a tremendous story, and I'm sure he wouldn't care. But I should share that for another time.
Well, the one guy transferred over to sports betting, the Asian guy, right? Isn't he on he was with ESPN Chalk, or I think you've mentioned his name before, John.
I think you're right on the
What's his name? He does some stuff with sports betting nowadays. He's fairly sharp. He's a numbers guy, but he was from that team too in the early '90s. And it's funny, the whole card counting thing is that we've all probably messed with it over the years, being as analytical as we all are. I mean, back when I was like 17 years old, I learned to count cards, and then I quickly realized when they're cutting 2 of the 6 decks out of play before the shuffle that doesn't matter how many tens or less if you never get to them before the cut card, doesn't do you a lot of good. So.
It's true.
Ed Thorpe, by the way, a huge financial guy, as you know, John. He's still kicking. He's almost 90 now, probably. He's made more money in the financial markets the last 30, 40 years than he ever did with the blackjack. Brilliant guy. I mean, at several levels. Don't know if he ever did much with sports betting, but he's done it pretty much everything else.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, but they're basically the same process. You have bulls and bears. You either like the Brooklyn Nets tonight or you don't.
Right.
You either like Apple, you don't. You either hate Bitcoin like I do, and I will admit I'm short it nervously, especially on weekends because weekend news can jerk things around. But so far, so good. But it's all based on sentiment. When there's a gazillion people in the world saying that Bitcoin's going to 200,000 like in the next 2 months or something, that's a sign. And it was really a sign. And similarly in basketball or football, I guess it's more apparent in football. And I'll throw the Eagle fan base under the bus here. But usually there's times in Philadelphia where you walk around and all you hear is that this Sunday is a lock. They are going to kick their butts from kingdom come till the cows come home. And they use different words than I just used. But that irrational exuberance that Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan used right before the bubble burst in the NASDAQ in 1998 has always stuck with me. So, you get irrational exuberance in betting. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're kind of the same thing.
One of the best lines I've ever heard, it might have been Buffett, is that the markets can stay irrational a lot longer than you can stay. Is it liquid? I forget the term he used, but that's what you got to be careful with and that's why it's Tony and Rob know I keep using that catch the falling knife analogy a lot on the NBA tip-off show and Wager Talk TV and stuff. And it's because, a team can lose 17 in a row, or like the Jazz this year, or the Rockets this year. They could lose 20, 22 in a row. And if you jump on at the wrong time, you're going to lose 6 or 7. So I really have the big change for me the last 5-10 years in whether it's financials, sports betting market, is that I wait to see that change. And Bitcoin, by the way, John, is a great example. The last 3 or 4 days, it gapped down over the weekend, and it's been trending lower here all week. And it's gone below a lot of the recent supports for the last 2 or 3 months. And does look like some of the steam is out on Bitcoin here in the near future. Don't tell Lawrence Presman. Tony Finn knows that very well. Lawrence is still very long on all the cryptocurrencies.
I have some friends. I have some friends that got into that at ground zero.
Oh yeah.
And he won't sell. He wouldn't sell if you put a gun to his head, and he's happy to see it come down so he can buy some more.
I think it'll be higher a year from now or 2 years from now. It's at 50,000 now. I think it'll still be higher.
I don't disagree. Project for him. So yeah, what is it? What's Bitcoin at right now?
Last I saw it was 48 in the futures market.
I didn't check the close.
He bought at less than 10,000, lot less than 10,000. So, and funny thing is, I think it was only last football season, beginning of football season, he was trying to sell. He coerced me into getting a little bit, and he wanted me to do a lot more, and it was 18 at that time. And had I done 30
on January 1st, it basically doubled since January. Now it's down to 50.
Had I done a lot more, you would see a bigger smile on my face right now.
During the pandemic, in the beginning part of it, you could have got it at 2,800.
Yeah, and it was 10 back in September when I started really tracking it. So that's a 500 or 600% return. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of the one concern that people have. Obviously, is the government will try to step in, but I don't think they can step in.
They can't.
I don't think they can mess with this. And that's why people like it.
I mean, I know that they don't want that. I know the banks don't want us to do that. They want to be able to track, and they want to know everything, And this is in many ways, shape and form. Obviously, we all know that it's just not something that you can regulate without having control over the miners and such. So it's just not possible.
Hey, Rob, are you a collectibles guy?
I am. I got
Tony, you are.
I got an
old jersey.
Jersey.
One of you would be.
What
are your thoughts
Lakers
on?
Jersey.
Have you seen this? Actually, Tony, Gabe Morency's the one that first told me about this on one of our Friday shows right before you came on after me. I don't know if you guys followed up with it, but those NCFs or whatever they're called that have come out about a month ago, 2 months ago, these digital, like
it's ridiculous
stuff.
Oh, I saw those things on ESPN.
It's crazy, Rob. I mean, but it's basically the blockchain is kind of what it is in the big picture, I think. But
you know what? I'm just glad.
It's crazy. It's stuff that's readily available to anybody, but it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because it's a one of a kind.
I'm glad I only got like 20 years left, if I have that much, because I can't take all this shit, all this digital shit.
In Caddyshack, the greatest lesson you could ever learn for investing or sports betting occurred in Caddyshack.
I'm intrigued now.
Be the ball.
I love Cat. I
See
know
the ball, be
in
the ball.
Caddyshack, and I can't think of which one.
Field's on the phone, right? Standing next to his bag, and he goes, "What? They're all selling? Well, then buy.
Buy, yeah.
Buy. Wait, they're buying? Well, then sell."
That's right. I forgot about
that
part.
That's all you need to know.
Hey, Wayne, don't tell him you're Jewish. I think this place is restricted. Okay, fine.
And then you have Wang with the camera.
Yeah, he's out. That's what they're on the call.
Caddyshack 1 maybe is a classic in my lifetime. And Caddyshack 2 is something that should have been outlawed.
I still don't think I've seen all the second one. It's so bad.
It's like Major League going back to the minors.
Wow.
That was on the other night, John. I caught about 15 minutes of the second one, and I don't think I'd ever seen it. It was terrible also. Yeah.
One and two are great, but
Yeah.
So is that movie going to be banned after next year when the Indians aren't the Indians anymore? I keep thinking about that whenever I see it on TV.
It would be a shame.
The way of the Dukes of Hazzard.
No, maybe they'll just they don't say the word too often, so maybe they'll just black out the image.
Yeah, they're going to put spiders. Tony Gabe's real big on this Cleveland Spiders. I'm not a fan of that nickname, although I know it has historical significance.
Yeah,
That's
we
creepy.
have spiders.
Yeah, I mean,
I think. Listen, I think that's fairly insexual. Is it? Did I say incestual? Never mind. Insexual? Never mind. It's a joke.
you really do have a dictionary of words in your head.
I make shit up.
I mean, I learn. People like learning a new word every single day of their lives. I learn like 5 every time we're on this show, at least.
So when I was on Tuesday
more.
night, guys, we spent a whole basically 30 minutes with Morency. He was reading off the 30. I guess the Redskins have sent their season ticket holders 30 name recommendations last week.
They're all
and I hadn't seen these till Gabe brought them up, and I looked at them. So I've been big on Red Tails because it sounded okay, and
I've been thinking.
Well, Pigskins has been on my
Washington Sunburns.
Morency hates Pigskins. He hates Pigskins. I like Pigskins because of the Hogs reference. You still got skins. You can still call them the skins, but it does sound a little girly. But there was one on the list I really liked. Red Hogs. Red Hogs is my new number 1 choice. I grew up in the 80s. I went to all those games when they had the Hogs and the Super Bowl run. And you still have red in the name. I think that's why I liked Red Tails. I'm starting to realize is red was still there. But I still think they should do Redskins and just put a potato on the helmet. If I was Snyder, I would actually do that at this point and just be like, screw all of you all. It's a damn Redskin potato.
He's the type of owner that would do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It'd be the only good thing he's ever done in 20 years.
Sunburns.
The Washington Sunburns.
Yeah.
It's not that hot in Washington, D.C., Tony. I mean, if they were in Belize, that would be probably a good name.
Non-extraditable country, Belize, by the way.
He knows them all.
Right, yeah, we're up to 11 on the show now.
Week also.
He's named 11. But let's get back to the NBA here.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll start losing half of our younger audience here listening to a bunch of old men carry on. But we're not really that old.
Hey, way to go with that. How about that Philly over? It was so easy. Easy.
And we're talking about Brooklyn and Boston. And I think the same thing. If you guys are with me, we'll make it a show pick. But I think that game's going to go way over. And I don't care who's playing.
I know. Doesn't matter.
In fact, you know how I like to play it. 50% pre-flop, and then I'm going to bet the over. What is the over right now?
224, I thought I saw. Looking at 224 and a half.
Yeah, it's dropped 5 points since they announced Durant out.
So he's out.
I'm
he's
assuming you guys know that, right?
Yeah.
So 212 to 214 and a half. I would add 25%, and then I would do the rest at 209 and a half. So 50% pre-flop at 224, then 214 and a half.
Let's go
209 and a half.
Let's go sharp way and play the under in the Cleveland game. Why is this going up 2 points? I don't get it. So
Cleveland Charlotte.
Yeah, what the heck,
Tony?
Me and Joe tried to talk you out of that Charlotte over yesterday. You wouldn't have it.
No, I won't have it. You can't talk me out of anything. And when I get set, let me see. My wife has talked me out of a few things, but those were for.
You don't have to tell us what they were either.
Physical harm.
They were life
9 extradited countries.
Flight risk.
So Ski used the under as his free play on the NBA show today, guys, in that Charlotte game, Charlotte-Cleveland under. And then the gold sheet play of the day for the show was also the under, I believe.
Was it?
For what it's worth.
I don't watch those shows.
I don't blame
I don't even know how to get. I don't even know how to watch them.
On them.
He doesn't watch them then either.
Well, speaking of the NBA show, I got a slide I can show you.
Oh, here we go.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah, and John, we brought that up. I like that subset, by the way. Incredible subset. I don't even have to look at it. 41 and 41. And what was it, like 4 and 37 for the other teams, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a sprinkle on the money line too. Let's see where this game is. OKC is at 10. So
it's right at that cutoff.
Yeah, and
I pushed on that last on Wednesday night.
What on Wednesday night?
OKC Washington wins by 12. That's the number I got.
That's
12.
unbelievable, Tony. I had 2 plays Wednesday in other games, won by half and lost by half. How tight were the damn lines?
I didn't like that
Wednesday
night very much. It was not my favorite night. And pushing
the lines were incredibly sharp Wednesday, though.
So in this particular system, it doesn't disqualify it. It's just the subset becomes a little bit less relevant. But 61% on anything above 10 is basically what that's telling you. Actually, that's not true. it would be above 10. The record is 16 and
16 and 18.
Yeah, 16 and 18.
So it definitely doesn't work as well once you get to these double-digit dogs. So it's borderline. But that 41 and 41 straight up for 82 dogs, John, is impressive.
Yep. That's the yep.
And it's funny, John, when I was reading that today on the show live, I saw 45 and 72 straight up. I'm thinking, why did he put that there? And then when I saw the subset, I fully understood why when it was 41 and 41. That's a huge difference versus 4 and 32 or something. So, yeah.
Do you guys still have the same host?
What's it? Yeah, Joe said, Merril, I know you love subsets. I gave this show a plug today. For my best bet segment, I took the first 10 seconds saying I'd see you guys.
That's awesome.
And I actually told him to check my Twitter feed for the exact details. I just realized I haven't retweeted it yet. So let me do that right now.
That's great.
No, but I figured that'd be the easiest way for him to find us. Yeah,
Tony gave it the best plug yesterday.
I was getting Joe all worked up.
The John Kelly show, yeah. Did you know that, Steve?
What'd I do?
Tony was endorsing, I guess, me. And this show, and he was mistakenly was
John Kelly show. And John,
I thought he was just being funny because I could see you being a Kelly Kricharian guy. So
here's the funny thing is I've heard from three people about me referencing John Kelly, who was infamous at one point in time here in Vegas, back before pre-internet, Stardust doing his radio show from the start of those days. And they all said, what's going on with John Kelly now? So now I'm a John Kelly expert, too, all of a sudden.
I have not heard his name mentioned in ages, Tone. I told you guys yesterday, he was a radio show host on K-Dawn 720. Yeah. He did the Stardust Invitational. He was the voice of that tournament. The 2 years I was in, he was the host. I knew him fairly decent. Not great. We weren't friends by any means, but I knew him. But I haven't heard of him in years. Of course, I'm not living there. Maybe Teddy or somebody's the right guy.
I live here, but I don't go further than a mile from my house. It's dangerous,
Yeah, I mean, you can't hang out in your neighborhood, Tone.
No. Well, I can't leave my neighborhood. It's Hotel California.
There's people with bats in your neighborhood.
More than half the audience doesn't even know what Hotel California
I've had one of those bats, by the way. It didn't taste very good or feel very good.
Oh my goodness!
So let's look at this game. If you guys want to, Miami 31 and 28, Atlanta 32 and 27. Atlanta's tied with Boston for the 5th spot in the playoffs. And before you guys joined us, Rob and I were talking about do these teams actually value what seed they are? And we, of course, mentioned the two most likely that don't care in Brooklyn and the Los Angeles Lakers. But at what point do some of these teams like Atlanta, to go from 5 to 4 means you get to host at least one home series.
Doesn't mean anything.
Not even for Atlanta?
Doesn't mean a thing. I get it. I visited some sites this morning, just random, early this morning. I found some random things. I found a column that I sent to you, John. I don't know if you took a look at that, about the stuff we were talking about yesterday, about the wild starts, April starts, slow starts. I found a column that was just written 3 days ago. It's so funny. And he does a pretty good job on it. But randomly, I'm finding sites that are still issuing 2, 3, 4 point favors and on in handicapping home teams, and I find it ludicrous, absolutely and utterly ludicrous. Home court's never met too much other than travel. And now the travel's even been, as far as any handicap, introducing or implementing any handicap due to travel, is that these guys they're sequestered. They go to their hotel rooms, they eat, they can't leave, they're not supposed to leave. It's essentially the things that I used to worry about was, how many NBA guys did Pac-Man round up last night and take to the strip clubs till 5 this morning? I want to know who they are so I can avoid them. We don't have, those are the things I used to worry about. Now, I just worry about who the hell's going to play. At least we're down to that, but that's not even reliable. So I just don't think I don't think these guys care about their seasons. Obviously, it'd be nice to be 1-4, but I think as long as they're not in a playing game and they have 7 games to tell you I'm better than you, that's all they care.
So you don't think when the Celtics are sitting half their roster tonight against one of the best teams in a primetime Friday night game, they care about winning? Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's
I don't think even though the Sixers, we talked about this yesterday on the show, as long as when Simmons was out, I'm all in that game over the total. I don't think they cared. If you watched them play yesterday, that was a let's see who can how many points I can pad my stat. I'll get a couple of rebounds. Maybe it'll help me with my year-end bonuses. I don't think they cared. I think it was a perfect situation for Milwaukee, although I wasn't one of those that was, had the cojones to lay double digits. But it looked pretty easy after the first half, didn't it?
Rob and I were talking about that game yesterday, and we had Eton from Fox Sports Philly on a separate show. I had the privilege of talking with him about the draft, and of course the Sixers came up too. And he, classified the game that he would bet it up to 9.5 because it was just simply a throwaway game for the Sixers.
Yeah. So
it was more important to keep everybody healthy than it was to try to win back-to-back nights. With that said, the Sixers are still in first place. So we have about 17 games to go, roughly. At what point do they really? 10 to go? You're still in first place. Then you start playing for first. No?
Well, I don't think you care. I don't think these guys care that much, unless they're playing.
The scheduling has a lot to do with it, guys. The scheduling has a lot to do with these back-to-backs. If you got guys, we just went through the Boston situation, right, John? I mean, they're going to sit guys, but rightfully so. Kemba Walker does not play the second of back-to-backs because of his knee. They're just trying to protect him. Jaylen Brown, I think that shoulders, for him to miss 3 straight games now with bursitis in his shoulder, that's problematic, and they're resting him for a reason. I don't know why they don't sit Jason Tatum as well on the bad ankle. 3 for 17 twice in a row now. He's 6 for 34 this week from the field playing on a bad ankle, but he'll probably march out there tonight. They're going to bring Evan Fournier back off of health and safety protocols, but some of these teams in back-to-back with injured players already that know they're going to be in the playoffs, just not going to push it. Just not going to push it. It's more important to have your guys healthy for the playoff run than it is to get the home court advantage. In some cases, not in every case. Obviously, there's never a blanket statement, but they're all situational. And in Boston's case, I could understand why they just don't play guys tonight. They got some problems injury-wise right now.
I just worry about the future, though. I mean, guys, this isn't going to change. I mean, once they allow it to happen like they've allowed this year, and I know this year, it's been a tight schedule and they're making exceptions, but they can't go back now because it's become accepted. And I'm not an NBA fan by any means. I got a lot of problem with the NBA. I think they're the biggest hypocrites right after the NFL. But, I mean, as a handicapper, it's been one of my favorite sports for 25 years to make money with. This year has not been my best NBA year. It's very difficult as a handicapper, especially when we're trying to put plays out early for clients on top of that. With this uncertainty. And I'll be honest, guys, I'm not looking forward to these regular seasons in the near future if it's going to be like this. I think the playoffs will be great again. I love the NBA playoffs. I've said for decades, if I had to choose one sport to handicap, it'd probably be the NBA playoffs. Consistently works year after year. I think that'll be the same this year, hopefully.
Steve, I don't put overnights out. I won't put overnights out anymore.
They're not even available. I mean, there's hardly any available.
Well, you can get a few outlaws. I can get a few of those, but right. True. Yeah, you're right. It's just not responsible. Too many times I've been irresponsible thinking I knew something when, again, it was just a flashback from the 60s with a bad acid trip. I didn't really know. I didn't know. I thought I did.
You know what social media does, though? It brings out the truth. As Wyatt Chapman, my new best friend, alludes to here, and he also goes on, Max here on record. I can't believe Ski would ever do that to me.
Oh, shit. He's done it to me.
Do we have an Ian on that
show? He's done it to you. He's done it to me.
Ian, it might be Ian Cameron. That's the only one I know because I actually go on his show.
Yeah. He's on a different. Yeah, he's with a different company altogether. Right. So
maybe it wasn't. I'm sure they didn't talk about my system. on that show. But anyway, it's good to know. And the other thing, Tony, when you're typing,
is it not loud enough? I can get louder.
It actually is soothing. I feel like I'm in
nice.
some kind of meditation room.
Said to me all day.
It's soothing for Tony too. He likes to write novels. I've been told on the analysis sometimes.
I don't get paid for them.
Medicinal for Tony Finn as well.
I can't imagine any guest or host hating on you and your typing noise.
Well, they hate on me for lots of reasons, but that's another show.
So moving back into the NBA here. Let's take a look at the Denver Golden State game. Our friend Wyatt actually said under 32.5 for Curry. And I think that was meant to be points. I'll have to look what he said here again.
Yeah, that's what he means. I'm curious if he's listening. Have him. It's easy to say that. Tell us why.
I was just going to say the same thing, Tony.
I want to know because
I'd be scared to do that with Rob Veno's money. Even.
Yeah, I'm all ears, baby. Because you can, I can't be talked into much. Maybe.
Yeah, I was curious to hear it might happen, but it's hard to make an analysis for it. I'd have a tough time making a fundamental case.
This matchup, I have a tough time with that one, but
which means it might be a very good play for that reason.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Tony. I was about to say the same thing. Not saying I disagree, but I sure couldn't make a case for it very easily.
Yeah.
Well, Kyrie over 28 points.
I can make that. We're talking about a ball hog. I don't consider Curry a ball hog. So. But Kyrie is a ball hog, and there's no Durant and there's no Harden. So damn well he better be over 28 points. In fact, I think that's too. I'm on that. Thank you, Nicholas.
It's just with Curry, they just don't have a lot of other options if they want to win a game than for him to score 30 or 40 points. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, let's go back to Curry for a minute, guys.
Yeah, let's do.
We talked a little bit about going 2-0, fading Denver. They've won their last two games, but they didn't cover their last two games. And again, I'll just go back to the fact that the four primary ball handlers on that team 3 weeks ago no longer exist except for one. Jamal Murray's out. Gary Harris Jr. got traded. Monte Morris is out. There's no point guard on that team except for Facundo Campazzo. And
he's not stopping Curry.
He's not stopping Curry.
He's not stopping Curry.
The only reason that I wasn't all in on Golden State tonight plus points was because it's home after a road trip.
Yeah,
an East Coast road trip at that. So that is somewhat problematic. But I'm just seeing here that even Kent Bazemore is not in the lineup now. I mean, I don't know who's going to stop Curry, the role he's on. They don't have to win, but he could get his. And Denver just doesn't have – they picked up Austin Rivers midweek to help that backcourt, which is so depth shy. So it's been 2-0 going against Denver so far since they've been faced with this situation. Only one point guard, and Jokic is generally the reason why they win these games. He had a good matchup 2 nights ago with nobody in the middle beginning of the week with nobody in the middle to stop him. But even against Nurkic the other night, Jokic had a really good game in that 1.106-105 win. They didn't cover, but they won the game. So Jokic could go crazy here tonight, but I would think Curry would go crazy too. So we'll see.
If you look at where Jokic things are going to change when it gets to right now. Good NBA coaches can make adjustments for losses. Murray's I think is a dynamic loss. It's a devastating loss, and unlike you guys have been talking about Kemba, for instance. Do you understand that Kemba, when he starts, and he's in a game and he's active, he's touching the ball almost 30% less than he touched it last year because he's not effective in the pick and roll anymore. His knee issue is just not effective. Jokic is without Murray, and Rob, you mentioned it. There's no true point guard. He's going to start when you get into a 7-game series against a good coach. It makes it so much easier to take at least some of those, a percentage of those points away, the effectiveness from the Denver offense, and they're in trouble come postseason time.
Guys, we had that discussion a few weeks ago here on this show about, revenge in the NBA, maybe not as much of a factor as like college sports, but I mentioned this on the NBA tip-off show earlier. I know the Warriors didn't go out there and Tanya Harding Murray the last time they played. You know, the knee injury just happened, but I almost feel like this is one of the few times you can really say this is probably a focus spot for a team after that loss.
Maybe.
They've won 4 straight since without a key player. This is where he got hurt and they lost because of it. I don't know. And as Rob said, they're off 5 straight East Coast games, so I don't really think there's any home court edge here. I kind of feel like this is maybe a focus spot for Denver, who still is probably the better team, laying just 2.5. But I would think the over is probably worth a look as well.
And that Curry, I mean, like somebody was saying before, make the case for Curry under 32.5 points to us. And I could make a way better case for him over. Under could happen. Of course it could. You could lose any bet, but I just don't know where the logic behind that comes unless you're projecting that Steph Curry's tired from the East Coast. He's going to go out there and clank a bunch of jump shots, which he hasn't clanked any jump shots in about 10 days now. It's
just play the game under at that point. Rob played the team total under, play the first half under. Yeah. I mean, and you probably have more room for error in case he still puts up 40. You could still win the under. But, yeah, I mean, how does the game not go under if Curry doesn't have 30? I mean, that's hard for me to foresee in that situation with a high total.
Tony, real quick to your point about the Murray injury being devastating. The day they acquired Aaron Gordon, I got a ticket on Denver at 9-1 to win the Western Conference, thinking that, they made it to the conference finals last year.
Right.
And at 9-1, I could hedge out. And when Murray got hurt, I cashed it out. I bet you can't be on that team without Jamal Murray. You just can't be on it.
You made a good decision there. And I'm curious how much, I hope you didn't lose too much, but I probably would have laughed at you when you came to my window and tried to cash it. I'd say, I love you, Rob, but no, you're stuck.
You know what's crazy, Tom? The site gave me 90% of my bet back.
Well, that's great stuff. You know something? They should be rewarded for that, and they just should be. I don't want you to have to mention anything on air, but I think that's good business.
Rob, was that fair based on what their adjusted line was for the future bet at that point?
Yeah, the Nuggets went from 9 to 30-1, I think, Steve.
Oh wow!
Then 90%.
But I didn't want.
That's pretty good then. Yeah, that's a good deal for
any part of 30-1. So we got that back. I said, without Jamal Murray, I don't want to take that bet anymore. So
they were down 1 game to 3 in 2 straight series just to make the finals last year, as you know. So,
you know what else they did, guys, is they allowed, if you wanted to stick with it, you could transfer your bet from 9-1. They'd give you the 30-1.
Really?
But I didn't go for that option. I should just give me my money back. I'll find a better way to use it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, I guess you guys see what I put on the screen here. This is from
I can't see anything else anymore.
This is BetMGM.
I see you, Rob. I see you.
Yeah, I can't shift the screen.
I'm
there you
staring,
go.
Steve.
Yeah, see?
It's like when I try to read John's angle on the tip-off show. It's great when you're on that show, Steve, because I don't even bother to read it anymore. I just wait for you to simplify it for me so I can understand
Well,
it.
It's funny because, Joe always throws me under the bus with it, so I'm, quickly reading it like this to make sure I'm ready to go, and he never throws it to me anymore. So, today we did at the end of the show.
It's really creative.
I was ready to respond, didn't have to.
There's a beat writer involved, and there's some bad blood, and you got to throw some shit in. McDonald's lunch, and one person didn't, and then Joe gets it.
Well, when I'm
here,
Tony
John
Fenn
being blocked like
too.
this, he could be doing a lot of bad things in the next minute or two during this live show. So
it
makes me very nervous when he's off screen for a long time.
Well, I'm not certain. I just, this way, I don't have to use that damn vape. I can use the water pipe instead. It's much more. It tastes so much better.
You thought the keyboard typing made a weird sound.
Well, the one that's highlighted is the one that I like. 6-1.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening.
I didn't run any numbers, but that sounds like almost an average Curry night right now.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 steals might be tougher than it sounds, but I mean, once again, who else is going to do it for him? I mean, he's a one-man team right now.
If Curry is conscious of this prop, I'm certain, and he knows. Listen, I've got to get 2 steals, but they're so random. That's the problem I would have with that. I mean,
well, 7 threes is a lot. I mean, for any
it
team
is a lot.
It's a lot. I would say both of those is less than 50-50 chance of happening on their own. Yeah. So you quickly get to 6-1 if that's the case.
But if
6-1 seems
like
a little
anything,
high.
if you shoot 33s, I'm certain he'll have 7 of those threes.
It always reminds me of Michael Jordan's 63 points at the Boston Garden. How many 3-pointers did he attempt, and how many did he make?
Yeah, that was incredible, John. I still don't know how they had 260-some points in that game with so few threes being taken and made. That's just insane. And I thought we all had that conversation the other week about the pace of the game, and I mentioned, in the 70s and 80s, they played pretty damn fast, high scoring at that one point, and then it came back down to earth in the 90s. But yeah, it's interesting. It just shows how this is all cyclical. Maybe this will change in 5 years. Maybe we'll get more money ball in the NBA all of a sudden in 5 years. Some team will come with a Princeton-style offense or something to give the big boys trouble.
They're going to widen the court, raise the rim.
Raise the rims to 12 feet. I've been waiting for that my whole life,
the three-point line will be about 35 feet, and we'll be back to life.
They won't, though, because they love the dunk. The reason I don't watch women's basketball, and I'm going to catch crap
don't you go there.
It's below the rim.
Don't you go there. That's the only reason that's exactly right.
I don't enjoy watching 10-year-old basketball because it's below the rim. I mean, I just don't.
Rob, what did I say the other day? I said, if they lower the rims to 8 feet in women's basketball, I'll watch it.
That's not. I don't disagree with you on that. I hadn't thought of that before. 8 or 9 feet would be interesting.
And I love women. I love you women. There's nothing personal.
And you love basketball. You just don't love women's basketball.
I don't. Damn good thing neither one of my daughters played basketball, or I would have been.
I call it like it is. I don't. And look, we're not the only ones. I mean, you look at the TV ratings for women's versus men's basketball. I mean, the
beautiful women, good people.
It is what it is.
All of them.
So in the NBA All-Star game, for example, it's all about how many you can make in a row. It's about how many you can do this, how much you can do that. So why don't we have the slam dunk contest with a adjustable height rim,
a handicap?
What height, like pole vaulting?
Uh-huh.
How high can you go? And I don't mean with I know that's.
I don't mean with a pole vault. We know what you mean, and I'm with you. I can try.
What would you make the over-under on that, John? I'll say 13 feet maybe for like a 7-foot. I don't know. Maybe that's too high.
I got to have a 12-foot ladder.
Well, there's some pictures I've seen where the guy's hand is up near the top of the backboard, and they're having guys that may be able to pick a quarter off the top of the backboard.
So you're making it 12 and a half feet maybe for the over-under?
Yeah.
12 and a half. That might be a good line. 12 and a quarter. I'll make the over-under 12 and a quarter.
Back before all this, back before we put so much steroids in our beef, and the guys started being 7 feet, and even the 7-footers could have a 40-inch vertical leap, which is crazy.
Right.
There was a kid that played for the Jayhawks under Ted Owens and played with Bud Stallworth, et cetera, Tommy Cavistos and that group, and his name was Tommy Smith, and his vertical leap was so high that they would say that you could put $1 on top of the backboard and he could make change. And dude, that's how that's who these guys are. It's not even make change now. They can order a drink while they're up there, make change, maybe eat, maybe even a teddy skin, and then come back down and continue the game. The rim's not high enough, and the court's definitely not wide enough.
But the play is better than it was in the 50s and 60s for most people to watch. I mean, they liked watching that game.
But
yeah, it's true.
10 shacks, there's no place to dribble anymore. You can't. There's no lane. I think making the court bigger would be a good improvement. I think making it above 10, you'd have less dunks. It would make it women's basketball. But I think more space on the court makes a lot of sense because these guys are longer than they've ever been in history. So I would agree some more space. Jump higher. Yeah.
And raising the rim, guys, it's not going to affect the amount of guys that can dunk. What it would affect most is the shooting percentage.
Oh, can you imagine your whole life shooting on a 10-foot rim?
Well, I don't know.
The amount of air balls.
Yeah, Steph Curry would be in trouble.
Yeah, 11-foot. It's just a whole new. We talk about sight and line adjustments all the time in college basketball tournament.
Yeah, a whole generation would be ruined.
Well, here's the
11-foot rim. You got to learn how to shoot again.
That's a great point, Rob. I never thought of that before. A whole generation of like 20 and 30-year-olds could never play again. It would be a debacle. Yeah, that's a great point.
And then we'd have to have a record book with asterisks.
Yeah.
Well, they have to have that already. We got 17 games in NFL coming up. Asterisks again.
if
you're
Damian
the way that
Lillard,
word starts out, that's appropriate.
if you're Damian Lillard or Steph Curry and you practice shooting from the logo 35 feet away right now, and they take those shots in games and make them, and then you have to shoot it even a foot higher. I mean, you have to be in the weight room just to get the ball there anymore.
Listen, Rob, I don't think a foot is even. I think an inch. An inch changes.
No, definitely.
You're exactly right.
It just changes
they're all
everything.
muscle memory. It'd be like moving the pitching mound a foot. Let's move the pitching mound 2 feet farther back because these guys throw too fast now. Can you imagine?
Let's actually lower the mound by an inch.
When they did, you saw what happened.
That would mess
when
these
they
guys
lowered
up, right?
Yep.
They lowered it because of Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson, right, Rob.
We saw what happened. Yeah. No, it's true. If it was still up that high, everybody would have it. Well, not everybody, but we'd see a lot more 1.5 ERAs and 0.4 whips.
Is Gibson's the lowest ever? No one's beaten that since, correct? Did Kershaw get it one year? I thought Kershaw maybe came close.
I remember Dwight Gooden. Dwight Gooden came really close in '84. He had like a 1.53.
What about
that 1.12? That 1.12 is not getting touched.
That's an asterisk also because he was on PEDs. Gooden was.
Good.
Plus, he was like 20, 21 years old, too. It's just that was my first year really getting into baseball. It was 84. Like, 84 is when I started collecting Topps baseball cards. 85, I had 5 of every card. And
I got a bunch of 89.
Gooden was my guy, man. That first year I was playing Little League. He was a rock star. That high leg kick and just, oh, man. And then how fast he fell. Then Len Bias, I'm in Northern Virginia, D.C. area. I grew up watching Georgetown and Maryland. Bias passes away in 86. And
horrible.
Gooden falls apart. That's probably why I've never done drugs, Tony Finn. Tony Finn, had you had those role models a decade earlier, just think of what a different man you would have turned out.
I would be dead, too. That's what I would be. Good damn thing I didn't have those role models. I've been right there in the car with them.
I'll tell you what, though, all seriousness, there's a guy who does a financial podcast, John. He's a trend follower, Michael Covell, and he's from the Northern Virginia area. And he said a few times, he's about 5 years older than me. He's early 50s now. But he said he's never done drugs like that because he remembers seeing Bias die when he was like in high school. Yeah. And I thought about that. I was like, and it probably affected me too because I've never had any interest in that stuff. And,
I've seen people die.
I mean, but you got to wonder how many people that changed the view on, especially in like the Metro
I hope
DC area.
The smarter people, but there are people that are not as smart like me. It just didn't affect them. It affected me for about 5 minutes.
To see a guy like Bias, though, Tony, who would maybe he said he'd never done it before, who knows? But like literally died the first time he did it when he just became the number 2 overall pick for the Celtics. I mean, that wakes you up. I mean, I think that
does.
That did more than Nancy Reagan ever did with her fried egg messages or whatever. For just saying no.
Yeah. I like that one.
Ross Perot with the eggs.
Yep.
The best with Admiral Stockwell in the debate, the vice presidential debate. Where am I? Who am
I? It's not. I think all that's irrelevant. All you have to do is do drugs responsibly, children. Just do them responsibly.
This message brought to you
by Tony Finn,
by the U.S. Milk Association.
John, you'll learn as the host here on StreamYard. You need to have a pop-up box ready by default when Tony's on that says the views of Tony Finn do not represent this show or this network. Veno Sports.
That's only the boring shows.
Or any friend or family member that is connected to me by. Genetically, I could go on and on. It probably would cover the whole screen, and they wouldn't be able to see Tony.
Something just went by in his background.
Did you see that?
You
see that ghost?
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw it too, Rob. I thought maybe I was on something for a second. I thought Tony had slipped me something through StreamYard.
You don't want to do that because I had an episode the other day.
Oh boy!
We talked about this. And it might be flashbacks. It might not be. If we were virtual right now, I'd probably pinch one of you guys just to make sure that no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go. I'll tell you a really funny story.
I'll sue your ass, Tony Finn, if you pinch me. This is
I'm not going to go there.
That
kill me if I tell this story.
Just
touch me.
I can mute the mic.
It is funny.
Oh boy, Rob's
going to somebody's moving on.
Somebody's calling me and selling me Bitcoin. By the way,
sell. Buy.
I said short, and I never said it wouldn't get to 200,000. It's just probably not in our lifetime.
John, over under 1 year from now, higher than 50,000? I say yes.
Yes,
I do too. How low will it go though within the next year? Will it hit 30 again? It was 30 on January 1st. It can hit 30 again.
It's interesting you bring this up because this is something I want to talk to Joe Ranieri about someday too, because I actually use these numbers in some of the basketball calculations I do in my head for the in-game. And it's a Fibonacci number.
Oh, I know Fibonacci. Don't get Tony Finn involved with Fibonacci.
In fact,
he'll go off
the
the
code to get into my new Mini Mac M1 is 1235 8 13 21. That's my pass
golden
code.
ratio.
Say it again.
Ryan.
Say it
golden
again.
ratio.
1 2 3 5 8 13 21.
You know about this, Tony? Tony, do you know about the Fibonacci sequence? Do you, Rob?
Safe?
You guys familiar with this?
I'm not.
If the
it appears everywhere in nature. It really is phenomenal. It's a lot of the retracement angles people use in the financial markets are like 62%, 38%, 50%. But it appears like in the petals of flowers, the ratios appear everywhere throughout nature, like the same sequence.
Oh, shit. I like that.
Yeah, and Tony, you would love it. This is like, Tony, this is like dark web, SDQL, everything into one.
I'm really liking that.
SDQL can't
NRBQ.
handle.
New Rhythm and Blues Quartet.
Tony, it'd be like if SDQL and the dark web had a love child, it would be the Fibonacci sequence.
Oh.
If you fed Fibonacci numbers to SDQL, it would blow up.
That's soothing, just listening to you guys talk like that.
But listen to this, Tony. I mean, I'm really focused on this with you, but all the other guys too. 38.2% retracements are the most common in nature and also the market, stocks, bonds, crude oil, cotton, whatever. 38.2%. You got to remember that number.
61.8 is the other side of that.
38.2. The next thing I see that is $38.20. That is 38.20. Anything 38.2, I'm in.
Yeah, and John, I don't want to give away too many secrets here, but I've fiddled with that over the decades, and you've got more power to research it than I do. And we need to off camera sometime have more of a discussion about this. But I think there's a lot of angles, and I don't even bring it up with sports because I don't want to give away the gold mine here.
Well, the number of viewers just went up when I mentioned Fibonacci, so maybe it's a search engine that identifies intelligence.
I'm trying to think something that rhymes with Fibonacci, and I can't even think of anything that rhymes with Fibonacci.
All right, so I'll finish this with Bitcoin. You basically have a high of 62,000, low of 3,000 during this pandemic. That's a net of 59. So
divide that by 2.
And like a maximum retracement that would still keep this in a bull framework is 50%. So 50% of 59,000 is approximately 29,500 on the price of Bitcoin.
Low 30.
So that is the absolute maximum that it can drop in this move and still be in a bull market.
Which is exactly where it opened on January 1st, basically, John. Low 30.
It would quickly erase the gains, but
even
your point about your friend buying the dip, if it goes to that type of path, you're going to see a day where it's going to be down like 8,000-9,000 when it challenges 30,000. Should this happen, and it's going to zing back like I call it the rubber band. The rubber band stretches, and then snap. So anything south of 40,000, I'm sure I will cover my short. But the Fibonacci's, I play around with them in the basketball. It's incredible. Like you can take a free throw shooter, and Fibonacci numbers will appear when they're going through bad times. Like a 90% shooter, inexplicably goes 2 for 6 one game. That a lot of times matches up with a Fibonacci. So when the Fibonacci is impacted and it's active, that means then that player becomes bullish. With me?
Yeah, I am. With you every step of the way.
And by the way, very few teams that had losing records in Major League Baseball in the month of April, including March seasons that started in March, don't make the playoffs very often.
Well, did you see that? Did you not? I sent you an article. I don't know if you looked at it, but read that.
I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but you obviously got my list of teams that have done it since 2004.
I wanted you to match those. I wanted you to see the guy who wrote the article did it a bit differently. He did 25 games, 50 games, 81 games, and did percentages based on games played. And I found it surprising to say the least.
How is it surprising? Tony, just give us a quick nutshell. They do make it more than you'd think, or they don't?
No, I mean a team that. Let me just to give you a quick example, and John probably has it handy. I have to pull it up real quick, but I found it amazing that a team like that in most cases even writes that teams that won in the first 25 games, if they won 7 or 8 or less games, they didn't, and they were. He even mentioned teams that were projected or at least prognosticated to be, compete for division titles.
Yeah, that's more interesting to me.
They did not just make it. They had Mays that weren't even bounce backs. That bad Aprils were more than a sign of bad luck. That it's showing statistically there was only 90 teams, according to this guy, 90 since in the wild card era that had poor Aprils based on 25 games.
How many games? Okay, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. I was going to say 25. I knew it was at least
25,
20.
50.
So 25. That's a key number to me because that's exactly that's a little bit less than 1/6 of the season. So, because the problem with baseball, of course, is you're playing 3 or 4 game stands, sometimes against the same team twice in like the first months, and then that's 8 of your 25 games could be against a really good or really bad team. But 25 games starts to get kind of legit where you've played good and bad probably, and it's starting to become a true barometer of probably how good of a team you are. So that's interesting.
It surprised me that, if I was saying the other day, people were sending me odds, and now that they were sending me these propositions on the Yankees finishing above 500 or making the playoffs, it all makes sense now. It's the Fibonacci. I don't know what they call it now.
Fibonacci.
He's Italian, Tony Finn.
But here's the deal: it made perfect sense. It's like that's the craziest knee-jerk reaction I've ever seen. We're not even a tenth of the way through the season. But in truth, those props were spot on with the percentages over the last 25 years of teams that not the Yankees right now. If the Yankees don't win another game, what the history tells us is they got about a 10% chance of making the playoffs. This is a team that's supposed to win.
That, Tony?
No.
It'd be interesting to see if it's a really good offense or a really good pitching staff because the Yankees have had great pitching, terrible offense. And it'd be interesting to see if the teams that made it were more in one category.
That's a good point. And it lists the teams. We'd have to dig a little deeper.
Right, but that'd be interesting to see. Like if you're struggling offensively, if you got a better chance or a worse chance. My guess would be if you got the pitching, you probably have a better chance. Maybe.
Well, I would have told you, Steve. I'd have said, listen, pitching can only take you so far, but that's been proved to be wrong so far. Exit velocity still at the same exit velocity. Less runs this year.
Hey guys, I got a theory real quick on. So when Bieber's like throwing that 2-0 shutout last week against the White Sox, and they're just showing how good he's been historically. Like last year, he's like one of 3 guys in history to have 35 strikeouts like at his first 3 starts. I'm thinking if all the Indians have to do is make the damn playoffs.
Yeah.
And he is going to go 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 7 in any series. They're going to basically be a favorite just by default with him on the mound for like half the games. I mean, and that's the kind of team I think you take a shot with in the futures, by the way. I'm not a big futures guy 6 months out, but anyway, that crossed my mind last week. I hadn't mentioned that on any shows since, but I just thought of that when
it's interesting stuff. And John, I after you read that, you can assess. I didn't know what to ask or how to have your search engine or basically your data look it up. Maybe by game would have been a better way to do it rather than by date. I don't know. So.
Well, while you guys were talking, I actually been playing around with it here.
Yeah, I think by 25, 30 games would be the way to do it. I don't think the dates matter, but you want them to have enough games under their sample where some injuries were taken out of play where, because what do you have, a 20-day DL back in the day? So I'd say 30 games just in case a guy's out for 20. Also if you play good or bad teams unproportionally.
We went from 20 to 15. Now it's 10, right? And it's not even. And don't use the initial DL.
Yeah, Dave Koken said that the other day. He said it's IL now, and that's the first time I've heard that. Yeah. And I realized, even being Mr. Apolitically correct guy that I am, even disabled list probably doesn't sound right to me. Even now that I think about it,
I like it better than IL. Yeah, I like the word disabled better than injury.
I can start the
down low.
This discussion. We can actually table it to Monday's show, or we can even table it to the next time Steve's on, so he can provide us with the Fibonacci aspect of this study.
Fibonacci.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, Tony, it'll blow Tony Finn's mind. It really, you never should have opened that Pandora's box, John.
Never.
Tony, you got to say that on one of the shows next week.
Fibonacci. I'm going to say, hey, you remember I spoke about John Kelly. He now is going up with the Fibonacci. So
I was on John Kelly's show last week talking about Fibonacci's.
Yep. So anyway, 2012 athletics were 11-13 at the end of April. No team that had fewer than 11 wins in April has ever gone to the playoffs since 2004.
That's alarm. That's startling to me.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. As long as the season is after that. But keep in mind also they were left playoff spots until recently, so we got to be a little careful with that angle for that reason. And like
the A's did have the ghost of Vita Blue. I don't know that the A's team. They've done it again this year, but that team wasn't that the team that won. How many straight did they win?
Yeah, and that 20? Also would have been a Moneyball team before everybody was doing Moneyball. Don't forget, also, so they were doing something different than the rest of the league. And I don't.
And how many did they win in a row?
Doing that
20.
Right now.
They won 20.
20. Okay.
And they're at
the only team
12
that's made
right now.
The playoffs had to win 20 straight games at some point to do so. Yeah. Basically, that basically means nobody should have made the playoffs in that scenario.
But the story behind that is incredible because they traded Carlos Pena, for next to nothing, and the whole media talking heads were saying that Billy Beane was done, he was gone. The Oakland A's they didn't have the word tanking back then, but it sure looked like that's what they were doing. And then out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere. Yeah. Like I think Hudson was really one of the starting pitchers that you would be a recognizable name.
Yeah,
they had all those guys. Didn't they?
They had Zito still.
They overused Hudson. They overused those pitchers, traded them to St. Louis or somebody picked them up. Nothing done. Worse than Dusty, and what he did to Wood and Pryor. Worse.
I'm being a little sarcastic, but what's Moneyball? On base percentage. Do American League pitchers get on base? No. Therefore, their value is worthless in Moneyball theory.
Yeah. That would be.
Yeah, but they keep the other team from getting on base.
It's a Fibonacci shit. I don't know that.
So do you want to know how Oakland as a team was in 2012? They lost to the Detroit Tigers in the divisional series 3-2. Mm-hmm. As a team, they batted. Where is it?
Is this 12 or I thought you said 04? Oh, they did it in 12. They're the only team since 04.
This is different.
They're the first one that came up on my list. The list of teams that have done it. There's 5 of them. 2011 Tigers were 12-15 at the end of April, made the playoffs. 2018 Dodgers were 12-16. And made the playoffs. 2019 Braves were 14-15, made the playoffs. Nationals 12-16.
How far is that going back, John? 04 you said, or how far is that going back?
04.
Yeah, and look, those are all since they've added the playoff spot. If I'm not mistaken, for the most part.
Yeah. Well, you mean the wild card?
Yeah, but I
95, 94, 95 is the wild card. Rob brought it up. He gave me a date yesterday. I think.
So it hasn't changed.
95. Yep.
Okay, it all runs together for me. Okay, so it's the same then. Okay, my bad. Last year was different.
Tony, is it really a prop bet that the Yankees will either be above 500 or no, they won't?
There's a prop bet for everything. Just ask the bookmaker.
Because this is one hell of an opportunity.
Absolutely, and it's Vegas. It's Las Vegas. Chris is the one that keeps shooting them over to me. He'll say, "And who's in first place in the AL Central?" And I just answer this way. It's not the same team that'll be in first place on May 1st, and definitely not the same team that's going to be in first place in October, so end of September.
But what are the odds for the Yankees? I would think that the odds to bet that they will not be a 500 team would be like astronomical.
Well, I thought so too, but they weren't. They were not.
And I looked at that.
I said, let's gather some money together. I want in on this. I like this, so I'm going to play it. And then the more I started looking at the history and the numbers, and of course, is 90 teams enough history to base it on? I'm looking at right now, there's in the first 25 games, 6 division winners. In the first since 94, only 6 division winners that were that had a worse than 11-14 record won the division. So 11-14 is that's not even unreasonable.
Yeah, that's like what's one tough series or something.
That's ridiculous to think that if you start worse than 11 and 14, your odds of in 25 are pretty minimal that you're going to win the division. If you use these numbers and these ratios.
So guess where Oakland in 2012 ranked in ERA?
Yeah.
In the American League.
They had to be
it's the American League.
They had
How
to
about
be
this? How about this? The 2006 Padres, they started 10 and 15, 88 and 74. Not great, right? 9 and 16. 2000 Twins finished 96 and 66, 9 and 16 start. That's impressive. The Rangers, 88.
What year was that?
Start. Huh?
What year was that?
Which one? The Twins?
Yeah.
2006.
So why isn't it on my list?
That's why I sent you this article.
You know what? This goes back to 2008.
Okay, well, that would be why it's not.
My bad. It goes back to 2008.
There you go. The 2005 Yankees, 10 and 15, finished 95 and 67. Wild card winners, the worst wild card, 8 and 17. That's 2001 Athletics. They finished 102 and 60. Started the season 8 and 17 and won 102 games.
43. That's what 94
crazy.
And 43. So that's 94 and 43 the rest of the way. That's incredible.
That's crazy.
And what year was that?
That's pretty amazing, though.
That's 2001.
Yeah, that was the year they won 20 in a row.
Right. That's the movie, the Moneyball. Isn't that the year? Yeah.
Yep.
How about this? Yeah. The Rockies have had some bad starts. 10 and 15, 07, 09.
Right. Tony, I think corrected on that too. It was not 2001. 2001, they lost to the Yankees in the playoffs.
Oh,
2002
you know what? They were the
year
AL
they did
West
20 in a row.
champs. Yeah, they were AL West champs. And listen to this. In 01, the A's were the defending AL West champs, but had the misfortune of sharing a division with the Mariners, who set an MLB record with 116 wins.
Yeah.
we see the same thing though in the NFL. What's the record with like 0-2 or 1-3 teams that make the playoffs 10% of the time? And I mean, it's like a time decay with options. You know, it's like a 30. And 1-3 would be 25% of your NFL schedule. 1-2 would be about the same as a 25-30 game baseball start, and the numbers are the same in the NFL actually when you think of it that way. Yeah. So it seems like yes, you have 100 and some games remaining, but percentage-wise, it's the same thing as Game 4 of the NFL. And when you're down 1-2, you always feel like you're in big trouble in the NFL because there's only 13 games remaining, but it's still the same percentage as 100 and some games in baseball, which you think would make it more likely. But it also because so few teams make the playoffs. That's the other reason. I mean, it's just
you guys remember. See, this is a shame. This is a bit bad thing. Is that we're all old enough to remember. We should remember some of these things, right? We really should. But so many things go through our.
They all run together for me, Tony. I can name every Super Bowl before I was a kid or watched them, but I can't name any since I've started watching them. I mean, seriously,
remember the Dodgers for me. When the Dodgers started their run in 2013, guys. That year in 2013, I'm looking at their numbers here. What's funny, they were 22 and 28.
Yeah.
After 50 games, they finished as division winners 92 and 70s when they started this run. They've run 7 divisions since then, right? So that's a pretty good. I mean, they started 22 and 28.
What about the Nationals? My Nationals 2 years ago. What were they? 22 and 28, I think. The first 50, and they won the World
worse,
Series.
I think, Steve. I think they were even worse.
It was like 14. It was very bad the first 50 games.
They're not showing on my list here. Hold on.
So the Nationals have to be
19 and 31.
19,
the first
there
you
50
go.
games.
That's exactly it. Yep.
So I knew it was 50
19
games.
and 31. They were a wild card team.
Right. And Tony, did they not fix a textbook example of what I was talking about? Because I said on a lot of shows that year, I go, if they make the playoffs, they're going to win the whole thing.
Right.
Because they're going to have Strasburg, Scherzer. Who else did they have?
Listen, I had them. I won a big pocket full of money. I had them at a 4-0 sweep over the Cardinals because I thought the Cardinals were the most overrated group of crap, and it was a horrible matchup for them against the Nationals. They couldn't hit, and I won a nice little chunk on your Nationals.
But that's the only sport I think you can look to play long shot futures and have an edge is like if they can make the playoffs. With baseball with the pitching staffs, like if you look once again at Cleveland with Bieber, I mean it's like. If he's going, or the Dodgers with Kershaw, I was wrong with that for many years because Kershaw underperformed in the postseason. But he was as dominant as a pitcher if I'd seen in my lifetime when he was in his prime a few years ago. just couldn't carry it over in the postseason. But there again, I'm like, if you're giving me Kershaw in half of your playoff starts or a third of your playoff starts, you got to like that. The Nationals took it a step further because you had Strasburg healthy and then Scherzer. So that was like 4 or 5 out of 7 games you were getting those two guys. I was like, they can beat anybody. It's interesting.
How fast does time fly? Because as you're talking, I'm reading, and I'm looking at the Dodgers in this 2013 team. I don't remember, but Puig was when he had that electrifying month debut it was in 2013. That long ago.
Puig was not playing in 2013, was he?
Yeah. That's what I'm reading right here.
I would have said like 17 or something.
I would have too.
Yeah, that's scary. That is scary because
I feel like, Tone, in that season they won 19 in a row too. They came real close to that Oakland A's 20 in a row if they didn't catch it. But in August they didn't lose a game. That team barely lost a game. That was they had a big second half surge.
They were 30-42, 9.5 games back of the D-backs at one point. Yeah, and so people are freaking because the Yankees are 4.5 games out of first place right now. But what we're talking about now is that's how the odds. Listen, that's what makes this so interesting, is because what we think to be perceptually ridiculous just isn't.
Yeah, but I think what you're freaking though is when you're batting 200 as a team, you've had single-digit hits. I didn't check them the last game or so, but earlier this week when I was doing the baseball show, they'd had single-digit hits and single-digit runners left on base for like 10 straight games. I mean, they are as bad as anybody offensively this year, and I think that's what scares people.
Rob, you're about to hear something. I had to read this on. It was Puig was a rookie in 2013, and with Kershaw and Greinke, the Dodgers went 62-28 during a stretch. That's pretty amazing. 62-28.
That whole summer post All-Star break. It started a little before All-Star break, but they were unbeatable.
Right.
To that point earlier that Steve was making about pitching and long shots, if we go back, Tone, this is why Tony La Russa to me was always a failure as a manager. I mean, I give him the 2006 World Series, but in 1988, the Dodgers had Oral Hershiser throwing twice and a bit of a bullpen, and they're prohibitive underdogs, and they win the World Series, better than 2-1 underdogs. Come back 2 years later, I mean, the guy wins the Earthquake World Series, but in 1990, Cincinnati marches out Jose Rio and the Nasty Boys bullpen, Rob Dibble, Randy Myers, Norm Charlton, and they're a better than 2-1 underdog, but they had the pitching, and they shut that open lineup down. So 2 instances in 3 years where pitching just totally shut down the lineup, and long shots won a World Series.
I have already
NHL goalies that carry teams through.
That's what I was going to say, Rob. It's just hard. Exactly what I was saying. Yeah, it's just harder to predict that though, because you're basically trying to predict who gets hot. Whereas with baseball, you literally know what the odds are going to be because Bieber's going to be a favorite over anybody. Scherzer's going to be pick'em or a favorite against anybody. But yeah, I thought the same thing. Hockey. And there's a reason, by the way, getting back to the NBA, that we see the cream of the crop win every season in the NBA, basically. We don't see that in baseball and hockey. It's because those 7-game series are so heavily reliant on a particular guy, a pitcher or a goalie, that they can carry teams. Whereas in the NBA, it's still a team sport, even though LeBron obviously carries a team. But, it's still a team sport. And you just don't see the upsets in basketball like you do in the other sports.
Yeah, it's true.
I know this. It's all of it is, it's just crazy. Not that it hasn't been crazy enough. Again, I'll mention this and let you guys figure that out. But I've never lost a game until this year. I was at a 26-point lead with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. Never. I would turn those games off years ago.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And I won't leave the damn set now. The bigger the lead, the closer I am to the set, because it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
Because they're higher scoring. I mean, the NBA has always been bad. I've always said don't watch the NBA regular season until the fourth quarter. But now, the last couple of years, the NFL, is there any reason to watch an NFL game before the fourth quarter if you're an action junkie? I mean, all it is an emotional roller coaster.
Unless you depends. It depends on, but
unless
now,
you have an overbet, maybe. The overbet is the only thing you might be comfortable with by the third quarter.
Tony La Russa, I've written some bad stuff about Tony already. I think he's already. I think the Chicago White Sox team is 4 games better than their record right now.
How the hell did they hire him, Tone?
I'm telling you right now, it's because of Tony La Russa. Some of the decisions he has fessed up to one where he actually came out at the presser and said, "We lost because of me." I yelled to the screen. He didn't hear me. I said, "They've lost more than this because of you bitch." You know. And I bet on a few of them. That's what I said to him, but he didn't hear me.
I see him at the top of the dugout stairs, and I have to wonder if he even knows where the hell he is at night. Because I swear to God, he just has that look of
headlights.
Listen, I'm old. That's he's 100 years older than me, and I'm old.
Yeah, and he's a damn drunk.
Well,
and they hired
I
him
don't
anyway.
begrudge him for that. That's not. I don't begrudge him for that. I begrudge him for his
but
decisions.
I mean, you're not applying for a managerial job in the major leagues either.
Not
Wager
yet.
talk, we can all be drunks. It doesn't matter.
I'm not old enough yet. I don't qualify.
This guy's smashing cars and they're hiring him. I just don't understand that hiring. I just don't understand it.
Wow.
It's based on past results, like you said.
Dave Roberts was number 1 on my worst situational managers ever in the history of baseball, at least in my lifetime. He's now second. Tony La Russa is at the top of that list. Horrible situation.
Roberts is the prime example of talent carrying a manager through.
If they didn't win last year, he was gone. I'm convinced
he had to be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, even still, I mean, I talk with my dad every night. My dad's a Brooklyn Dodgers fan since he was a kid, so I got raised a Dodgers fan. I talk with him every night, and for 4 years, we're all over this, Dave. Every night you watch, he does something.
I'm right with you,
shake
man.
Your head every night.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell
there's no more.
doing?
There's no more run line games with me, Dave Roberts, and Jansen, because one of us is going to kill the other before the end of the season. Unbelievable. Jansen, Dave, are they sleeping together? What the hell is going on there? Wow. Okay,
I saw Kenley
that's all I got.
95 the other night.
That's all I got. Love you, Dave. Yeah. Love you.
His managerial stuff.
Give him hell, buddy.
He's lucky. He's got talent.
Man, it's just great. Love the passion.
I'm passionate. I'm passionate about my clients' money.
You can't find a better manager than Tony La Russa. Come on.
Holy crap. Listen, I touted this. This is a really talented White Sox team, but I'm going to have to go back and ask the internet gods to delete every good thing I said about this team before the season started. That's because he's really making me look like a shithole right now.
We should have been the search committee for that job. The 4 of us would have found the right guy for that job.
Shoot, we could find better draft picks for the NFL.
Probably
we all do a
one
better
of us.
job than most of these people, I think. I think sports bettors and sports gamblers. Old friend Kevin O'Neill from back in the 90s, I'm stealing this idea from him, but he said back in the 90s, he goes, every NFL team should have a strategy consultant on the sideline. And I've always thought that was the best point. Like, when you go for 2, when you don't. I mean, a guy like John who has the statistical backing for this stuff. And
all you need is that it would be one of us.
Any of us.
We can think of that stuff on the. We know exactly what to do immediately.
Well, we've watched enough games from a situational, analytical perspective where we know.
True,
exactly.
And we think we know what the right thing to do is. We think we know what's right to do for our wager, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, but we've seen enough bad stuff happen that we remember it too, and we know we know what bad stuff could happen. I think that's the other part of that is like I'm always looking for the bad scenarios, like that 26-point lead. Now you know that can happen, Tony. So every time you have a 26-point lead, you're going to be worried about it now. Well, you never were before.
And Finanici stuff, I don't know. Finanici.
How about Nashville the other night playing Chicago? 4-1 with 10 minutes. 10 minutes to go.
Worst beat ever. Worst beat ever.
That's
in the history of
beats.
Lost
5-4.
That's worse than one of my college football unders, or I had, and it was 3-0, and I went over. I mean, it's one of the worst beats ever.
How many overtimes was that, Tony?
Well, enough that I now have a lot more gray hairs than I did before that game was final. It was nasty bad. And how about these you got the new rules now? Chris came by this morning, Las Vegas Chris, finished second in the circuit contest.
Yeah.
Genius. And he says to me, he says, did you hear about the new college football? I said, I saw the headlines. I didn't read about it. I said, it can't be worse. And he goes, oh, yes, it can.
I haven't seen it. What is it?
Well, now they've got only one overtime. The second one you have to go for two immediately after the first overtime
instead of the third one. So that's
and in the third overtime, it's 2-point conversions the rest of the way. And I said, well, I don't know that's
but
worse.
That's not a bad. That's good though. There'll be less long overtimes. It should end
much better for under players. I can guarantee that.
Well, and that's more of a true handicap. So that's not bad for us. I mean, it gives you a fighting chance if you have an under to still win. Not like
overtimes are funny. They're a tricky animal. I don't like the NHL shootouts. I don't like shootouts personally.
Yeah, I don't like shootouts either.
But
that's a soccer thing. Anything you take from soccer is not on my to-do list.
I don't see what's wrong with ties. What's wrong with a tie?
I've had no problem with ties in hockey. I grew up that way. When I used to watch hockey, which I don't anymore, ties were there all the time.
If they had more ties and less overtimes, I'm certain I would be a wealthier man.
I still have difficulty reading the standings because I don't follow hockey like I used to, and I still get confused by all the columns and the standings with the third and fourth. Which one is ties and which one is overtime wins, and I mean it's ridiculous.
And if Las Vegas Chris is listening, he suggested this morning. He said, "Listen, I know how they should in hockey. If you go in overtime, you lose." He said you should lose a point, not get a point.
I agree.
That's what he said.
Ties, I mean, the NFL, you don't get a half win. I mean, if you're not going to have ties and you're going to overtime, it should be a loss. Right. If you're going to do the damn shootouts, it should be a loss. I think it's stupid. But
there you go.
It's their way of saying a shootout is stupid because they're not giving you a loss, yet they're doing it anyway. That's kind of messed up.
You guys are all hockey fans. I'm not really. I'm a hockey fan.
I used to be, yeah.
I'm not a big pat. I just don't have enough time.
What about the baseball game on, I think it was Monday, Arizona? They
down 3-0.
Oh yeah.
And then it rained and game ended, but then it reverts back to the previous inning.
That was Tuesday because I was on Wager Talk today, Wednesday, and Teddy was breaking that down. And then they had Art DeCesar from the Link, and he said he didn't even know the rule. He'd have to go check. I thought that was very telling when a sportsbook director was honest enough to say he wasn't even sure what the house rule was on that one.
Yeah.
So
did any of you guys see that live as it was happening?
No,
and the Reds pitcher refused to throw a pitch. He just kept throwing the ball back to the umpire, and the umpire would throw him the ball, and he'd walk around the mound 3 times and then throw it back to the umpire. It was hysterical. He just refused to pitch.
Life is good. You know that life is good.
He's got some emails, I bet.
Yeah, it was fun. Then the manager came out for the Reds and delayed it even more. And it was pouring. I mean, the fact that those umpires wouldn't put the tarp out was crazy. But, it was pretty funny to watch.
You guys had money on the game, maybe.
Well.
No, that's not possible. What did I just say? That's not possible.
Pete Rose didn't gamble on games. That's bullshit.
He only bet on his team, and he is in the Hall of Fame. Have you ever been to Cooperstown? He is plastered all over the Hall of Fame.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting. I've never made.
He's listed as the hits leader.
But he's just not been inducted yet.
But they didn't block out all the hit. They didn't block out the hits record and other things that he has.
Nah.
Interesting.
No, they also have the Schilling's bloody sock on display too, which is pretty cool.
I like that.
Did still call the blood socks in the All-Star game make it? That's one of my favorite moments.
I think I told Rob this that the Hall of Fame has no connection to Major League Baseball legally.
Oh, that's true. I guess I did know that, but I wouldn't have remembered that. Yeah,
so the Hall of Fame's mission statement is to report the history of baseball. So what's the big deal in reporting the steroid era? Set up a little wing, report the steroid eras, the facts we know, and that's it.
Yeah,
accurately,
because they need good graces. They need to operate in the good graces of MLB, right? I mean, that's the bottom line.
Do you not think that did they really believe that we didn't know that McGuire and Sosa were juicing that year? I mean, give me a break. They were doing something. Either that or
they knew.
They had a direct connection to Colombia and Pablo Escobar. Something
they knew but didn't want to know. No, it saved the damn game in the late 90s.
That's exactly what they
looked the other way, and then he prosecuted him.
Just like the NFL.
I don't like about the guy.
It's just like the NFL and betting. They fought it right up to the Supreme Court 2 years ago, and the next day they're opening sports books. I mean, why did they even fight it as long as they did? It was so ridiculous.
Because they think that they are unlike Tony Finn, and if you think you have to be politically correct, then you're missing way too much of life.
I guess that's
another life lesson for you, Tony, that I learned during the steroid era. And it was when Rafael Palmeiro and the crew were down in Washington doing testimony, right?
Yeah.
So Rafael Palmeiro stands up and he goes, I never took performance-enhancing drugs in all my life.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm telling you the truth to all of you guys. I sat there and I thought, well, wait a minute, where did I see that before? And then it hit me. I have not had sexual relations with that woman.
Bill Clinton, the Bill Clinton.
So anytime
reincarnated,
they're
Bill wasn't even dead yet. Oh, he's still not dead. Yeah. I know this much. That's where I learned to make up words was from those hearings.
Yeah. Define if. Or it, whatever it was that he wanted to have defined.
No,
it was misremembering. Is misremembering or mishearing? I'd make
misremembering.
When those shit came, I knew I could make words up, get away with it.
Was that Kurt Schilling? Who said that?
Misremembered.
Misremembering is. I don't think that is a word.
They misremembered that,
or maybe it was Clemens. I think it was Clemens.
Oh no, you're right. It was Clemens. It was Clemens. Yeah, yeah.
Misremembered.
Isn't that funny? We don't hear much about Roger Clemens anymore.
No.
We only hear about the bloody sock, and
Schilling had the game company.
It's because he's so outspoken,
company.
And he's also doesn't care about being politically correct. He'll pretty much tell you what is on his mind, whether it's true or not, or accurate, or relevant.
Maybe he missed his calling.
Well, I don't know. He was a pretty good pitcher. He was pretty good.
Hey, you know what I wanted to do just to show you my range of creativity. And
well, then let's see that.
Check this out. Now.
Okay,
I'm not just an NBA angle of the day guy, and I did this and I published it. Look at that.
What is that? That's a hockey. You widened the hockey just like they're going to do the basketball goals. It's a wider hockey rink.
See?
Yeah. Look at that rink. Like that thing is huge.
Look at it. It tells you to bet
it's like the Olympics.
Your tails off on Nashville.
All right, wait a minute.
I'm gonna guess that if you're taking a run and a half in baseball, or a goal and a half in hockey, and playing underdogs in 2021, I think you're ahead. If you're a dog player, I think you're ahead, especially in baseball so far. And that includes taking the plus run line, which I never do. I just don't do it.
I'll tell you what, with these hockey systems, once again, I don't follow it as closely as I used to, but this year with the back-to-backs, and like Tony and I will do the Saturday show on Sirius XM where, Carm will come on and talk some hockey. And so I've kind of been following it from afar. It's a different season, unlike any other, though. So I definitely would tread lightly with any historical stuff just for that reason, because they're all playing the same division. They're playing, and that's why you're seeing such big favorites, Tony, is that you just get some haves against the have-nots. Not the Habs, not the Canadians, the haves versus the have-nots. But yeah, I agree. I think this year's a tricky year from systematic stuff, I would say, historically.
It's been fun. It's going to be, listen, we'll look back if we're still alive a few years from now, and we'll laugh about all this. We really will. We'll laugh externally, and it'll still be painful, some of the stuff that's happened. That's for certain.
You know what the Major League Baseball record is for home dogs so far?
I would say that
above 500.
I promise you that they're ahead.
Ahead money-wise would be my guess.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it is what it is. So
irregardless of location, home or away, just dogs
doesn't matter.
Are 123, 134, but ROI of 13.3%. $100 better if he betted all those dogs would be up over $3,100 right now.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
And that's with the Dodgers having a very good start still as the best team in baseball.
Right.
So that's if you take them out of the equation, it's probably even better. Because you would think, well, maybe that's because the Yankees being bad probably has helped that, and the Padres. The Padres and Yankees underperformance probably played a large part of that plus money. In fact, I wonder if you take out the Yankees and Padres, if it's break even for everyone else.
I can try to do that.
Because you're talking about like the second and third favorites that have underperformed. But then again, the Dodgers have probably won money overall. Although I think they're such big favorites, they probably are about even too. Though it's tough to say.
Yeah, so I take the Dodgers out. It does get it gets much better. Yeah, we're up near 19.3% ROI.
But I bet the Padres and Yankees have all set the Dodgers winning, so it's probably even overall with those three teams.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the Padres and Yankees.
I bet they've lost more than the Dodgers have won. Of course, the Padres played.
I have the Dodgers only being a dog twice.
Who?
The Yankees.
Very possible.
Yeah, that's why I'm sure they're a huge money burner. That's what, and the Padres probably as well recently.
They're 5 times, 2 and 3 as a dog.
The Dodgers still have been a dog. I still don't think they were. The only time they could, DeGrom will be for instance, DeGrom in City maybe, but they're going to have to be really bad. They're going to have to go on a really bad run not to be favorite, no, regardless of where they are and who's pitching, as long as they're one of their top 6 starters.
Yeah, Rob, you were off last week when Tony and I were talking about this at the end of the show here. We were saying I projected like if they win 67%, they're going to have like 108 wins at that point. And Tony had said they might never be a dog all season. And I said what's crazy is they're going to win 67% of their games. They still would be negative against the money line because they'd have to be minus 200 on average to break even, and they're going to probably be more than that on average. And then
especially in September.
Yeah, right. And then I said the other side of that is you play against the Dodgers, you probably lose money also because you're talking about a 40 or 50 cent split on a lot of the lines. Yeah. So you're not necessarily going to make money by playing the underdog either. That's what's so crazy about the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, who else's 4 and 5 starters, Dustin May and Julio Urias, are constantly $1.70, $1.80 favorites? You're 4
Nobody.
And 5. What would they be against DeGrom, Rob?
Well, that's your situation.
That's the one. I mean, if it's at Citi Field and the Mets are home, DeGrom probably. Yeah.
But what if it's DeGrom and Buehler?
Maybe DeGrom.
What if it's DeGrom and Buehler or
DeGrom and Bauer or DeGrom and Kershaw? Any of those
DeGrom is a dog against Bauer. Agreed? Against Buehler, against Kershaw, a dog.
Current form might have a little to do with it too. The Mets are holding their own.
Yeah. If the Mets are 60 and 20, they're probably not a dog. But I mean, the Mets are going to be the Mets, and this NL East right now looks like it's going to be a dog fight to finish 10 games above 500.
Yeah, I mean, even guys like Scherzer at home is a dog to the Dodgers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know
absolutely.
if he's a dog to Julio Urias or Dustin May. If it's Scherzer and Dustin May, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Scherzer's a good example. He's pitching really well right now. The Nationals are struggling overall. So, yeah, DeGrom and Scherzer are the two that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. It depends. I went through the schedule. They'd have to the matchup it can happen, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen. And I would like to see the prop right now. I mean, we talked a little bit about it with Gabe. I asked Gabe point blank.
Oh, did you? Because I made it like 2.5, I think, Tony. But I forgot to ask you if you asked Gabe.
Well, here's the deal. I said, didn't you and Steve discuss this?
No, that's when I got sick as a dog that night, so I didn't do the show afterwards.
I told him. I said, Steve,
I got sick after this happy hour.
Steve, I said, Steve bowed out of a media chance.
Yeah,
he's sick.
The inner ear.
He's really sick.
Yeah, I was.
That's what I said. And Gabe laughed. He said, "Yeah, you're right. I've been doing shows with him a long time. He'll beg in before he'll bow out." And I said, "Oh, I would too." So he's sick.
Yeah, the room was spinning. It's funny. We did the happy hour show here, and then I basically felt like I was drunk. The room was spinning. It was an inner ear thing, but ironic though. But hey, so Rob, I made the over/under 2.5 times this year. The Dodgers will be a dog.
Right.
Which way you going? Maybe under. Maybe I'll make it 2. I don't know. You guys.
2.5 is a good number. I think it's a good number.
2.5 to the under
because you don't want any pushes, right?
No, I
mean they don't cross over. I don't see the schedule in front of me. They don't cross over and play the Yankees, right? Garrett Cole wouldn't be a consideration.
Well, that's a good point. That's the interleague stuff, and maybe Bieber and the Indians also. I don't know if they play.
Yeah, the Indians' offense would prohibit Bieber from being a favorite, but I wouldn't argue with you. They would.
I don't know about that. I think Bieber would be. I mean, you could put him ahead of DeGrom right now.
Well, DeGrom only because perceptually, much of being a favorite is, as we all know, it's just perception.
Yeah.
It's just what they're trying to get even money on both sides. And I assure you that DeGrom in New York, you're going to gather enough money, enough change maybe to justify him being a favorite. I just don't think he can do it. Bieber, am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. We know who Bieber is, but I don't think most weekend warriors really realize who Bieber is right now.
It's hard to imagine 162 games that they can't be a dog 3 times. But
I know.
I'll make the number 2.5 though. And Tony's confident about September. I actually a little bit more worried about September. I could see some real off games if they. Now, granted, being in the Padres division, you wouldn't have thought it'd be a runaway in September, but right now it's looking like it might be. So then I could see them being a dog maybe in September, but maybe not.
Yeah, it'll all depend on how close that race is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's 8 teams that if I add up the number of times they've been favorites and add them all together actually it equals the number of times that the Dodgers have been a favorite.
Yeah.
Pirates 0, Diamondbacks 1, Mariners 2, Orioles 3, Rangers 3, Rockies 3, Tigers 3, Marlins 6.
Yeah. How about that line? What's the least a team will be favored all season? You don't even have to tell me the team because I think the Pirates might be favored a few times, but
they have none so far. Them and the Diamondbacks.
And they were the lowest total to win, like at 59.5. So say, how many times will the Pirates be favored this year? 8, 10? What would the over-under be on that one? Maybe less than 10? Maybe 8.5? Well, I don't know. I think they're going to actually win 60, 65 games, though. So,
yeah. I mean, who can they send to the mound as a starter that actually deserves to be favored?
They could be favored against any one of those teams I just mentioned.
The Rockies at home, I assume they play them at home 3 or 6 times, so they'll be favored in some of those, probably 3 or 4 of them, maybe. I don't know, maybe half of them.
Yeah, not against Marquez, but the rest of them, maybe. Yeah, I mean, that's
it's fascinating.
Well, since this is since 2004, do you have any curiosity who's been favored the most games?
Since 04?
Yeah, this definitely includes 04.
I'll say like the Cardinals or somebody. I don't know.
And I'm just going to do regular season also.
Yankees, Cardinals. I'll do Yankees and Cardinals for each conference.
The 2017 Dodgers regular season, they were favored 154 times out of 162.
So that's only 8 times they were a dog.
153 for the 2019 Houston Astros. 2018
that's like
Astros.
8 to 10 times on average the best team is a dog. So 2.5 is within the realm of possibility. Oh, that's probably pretty low though. I think if you take September out, it's a more true handicap.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Steve, to that point, the Dodgers didn't have a 5-man rotation in that year where they were 154 like they have
they're better
now.
No, they're better now than they've ever been. I agree.
More guys that need to be that would qualify as favorites. So, yeah, the Houston teams you're rattling off, John, those have Verlander and Greinke and
Keuchel.
Who am I missing?
Dallas Keuchel.
And Keuchel.
Yeah.
Guys that were favored constantly with that offense.
Yeah, even bigger favorites than the Dodger pitchers, to be honest. I mean, those are 3 Cy Young caliber pitchers. That's the thing with the Dodgers too, Rob, is they're not going to have the Cy Young winner. How crazy is that? I mean,
yeah, it's as crazy as DeGrom wasting away on the Mets.
Yeah.
No, I'll verify this, but the 2006 Kansas City Royals must have been pretty darn awful because they were a favorite twice.
What
wow. year?
Yeah. And they won a World Series within 6 or 8 years later.
What year was that?
14. What year did they win the World Series, guys? 14 or 16, maybe 16. So 10 years later, they won the World Series.
100 games in a row, a couple years in a row.
In fact, the Royals did it in 2005. Also, they had 6 times that they were a favorite. They were pretty bad then.
They lost 100 games both those years, I believe.
Yep.
And John, go back 10 years before the Astros won the World Series, and they probably lost over 100 games. And the Royals and Astros both won the World Series like 10 years later after being the worst
remember
team
the
in baseball.
Astros were trust the process before the 76ers were.
Right.
And here's something a little surprising for Rob will probably be surprised. 2015 Phillies, 12 times they were favored.
Yeah, they were really bad. I forgot it was that recent.
Got Ruben Amaro fired, which he deserved to be. That might be the year they sent Charlie Manuel packing with his poor little bag of Wawas before the game started. I see a guy, old man, walking through the parking lot. What they did to him was sinful.
Ruben Amaro used to come in the pizza shop once in a while down the street from me. He used to live in Yardley, as did Terry Francona. When I don't know if it's proper to mention Philadelphia celebrity sportscasters or not, but I remember one in particular said that Francona would never last a month in Boston.
Oh, they love him in Boston.
He ended the curse too.
Yeah.
And then there's the bloody sock too. Well, you guys want to go around the horn here with just best bets to keep consistent, and we'll
it's
call
time
it
to reload on my tequila. So,
yep, I'm putting last minute plays in while we're talking here.
Yeah,
10 minutes till tip off.
Go, Steve. Give us your winner so we can all copy off you. Go.
So I'll use the one I used on the NBA tip-off show on Wager Talk TV today, and not a game I love, but there wasn't a ton of stuff in the NBA tonight. But I used over the total between the Clippers and Rockets, over 223.5. Some of the sharper books are at 224, so I took a little bit of a deeper look at it. These teams played exactly 2 Fridays ago. I believe it was 235 points. The total was only 220. Both teams have some players out tonight, but as we've talked about on this show, that often leads to offense and no defense. And can't imagine the Clippers give a damn about this game. So I think there'll be some points tonight, Rockets, Clippers. Light sprinkle on that one on the over.
All right, we'll move over to Tony.
I'm just glancing here. I'm going to go to baseball. I'll go to baseball. I'll let you guys do another NBA, or if you want to, whatever it is. There's a couple pitchers going tonight in Baltimore. That game's about really close to going off, but I'll just go ahead and give it out anyway. It should be 6-10 minutes from now. You got Irvin and Lopez going that matchup in Baltimore. And the number it's a heavy 9. I like the over in this game. Over 9. It's a heavy 9, minus 30, minus 20. A couple of places actually moved to an under, to a 9.5, but the DraftKings, etc. Both pitchers, Irving in particular, has some decent surface numbers, but he doesn't miss any bats. He doesn't miss enough bats. He's got a contact. It's about a 91 mile an hour exit velocity off balls hit and play. And both of these guys are solely dependent on batted ball luck. And when you get two of those pitchers together with a couple teams that have the ability to hit the baseball, and I still believe Baltimore is a better hitting team than pitching team. People will argue me. I'll just say, well, who the hell's pitching for him then? The umpire in this game is a rookie. He's essentially a rook, 50 starts or so behind home plate. But his metrics are misleading. It shows that he calls more. He has a high percentage of strikes as above the league average, above the union average, and it's just not the case. I fully expect winds blowing nicely out. Weather's pretty good, pretty conducive to a high-scoring game over the total for Baltimore, Oakland, with Irving and Lopez on the mound in the first inning.
I like it.
There we go.
We'll move over to Rob Veno now for a best bet.
Yeah, we talked about it right off the bat, John, on this show. I like Brooklyn tonight, minus the 3.5. I liked them without Durant. Or when there was a possibility that Durant would play. I didn't handicap for Durant to be in this game, but I just think the problems, it's more of a fade against Boston. The injury problems there, the back-to-back situation, again, we liken it to what Philly went through last night in Milwaukee, where you have guys that are hurt that can't play back-to-backs here. Kyrie and the group for the Nets ran into it against Toronto a couple nights ago when Toronto brought 4 starters back. They brought back Siakam. They brought back Van Vliet. They brought back Lowry. They brought back Gary Trent Jr. They brought back Anunoby. And, the Nets on back-to-backs couldn't handle it. But with the day of rest, I think they're a pretty good play here, minus the 3.5. Real quick to what Steve said, Clippers, Houston, Wager Talk Today's show, I too use that over as a play on that show. Go back and watch the replay of that for that analysis. And Tone, we had Cole Irvin here in Philadelphia last year, and Cole Irvin was not good. So totally support Oakland hammering him tonight for sure.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It's good. It's a good night. Really, there's some important basketball games we could have talked about. We wanted to go off on our own personal tangents, but this Memphis Portland game is a bigger game than no one's talking about that. Houston's no longer even they're one of the first two to be completely eliminated from any postseason potential or possibilities. Who was the other team? Houston and who? Last night, I don't recall what was it.
Orlando.
I mean, the Thunder probably weren't awful all year, but they're as bad as anyone right now. But yeah, maybe
I think that's who it was. I think you're right. I think it was.
Yeah, Orlando's been bad all year.
And Denver. I think this late game is going to be. It'll be a game that I'll finally be done working. I'll relax a little bit, and I'll watch a little of this Denver Golden State game because I'm kind of interested in it. I might even do a little bit of Twitter in game live on that, and get some opinions from all those watching, maybe even you guys. So good luck tonight,
Portland,
guys.
real quick.
Yeah.
Again, guys, and I don't know that you could quantify Memphis as elite, but Portland with that 106-105 loss to Denver again, they just cannot beat good teams.
Right.
Damian Lillard hammered it home 2 weeks ago, and ever since then, it's just been a constant. They come so close, they don't win. Both of these teams are in the same boat right now. That'll be one of the best games. Like Jaren Jackson Jr. back for Memphis second game.
Yes. Listen, Robbie,
that'll be a good one.
I didn't play this, but Portland's susceptible. Nobody scores more points in the paint than Memphis, and no one has a better against the spread record at that. Let's put it this way. They're better on the road than they are at home. And I don't care that they played an overtime in Denver and they're 2-2 on this road trip. They did have wins over Milwaukee, had a win over Chicago, Milwaukee, I think, right? And lost to Denver, but they're capable. Memphis is capable of doing exactly what you just said. Portland has struggled against teams who are pseudo postseason contenders or quality postseason teams. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. No Valanciunas might even the playing field a little bit in the paint, but still Portland just doesn't beat good teams. And Lillard's going to have to get it done here at some point. Not only him, but Norman Powell and CJ McCollum and the whole gang. So we'll see. They drew money today, guys. They drew money. I know they're up to 3.5.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes, but that'll be a good game. John, sorry to hold you up here, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's great because actually my best bet for the show is the Memphis Grizzlies.
There you go.
I was saving it, but now you stole all my thunder. But betting on underdogs that are coming off a double-digit humiliating loss as a favorite, and now facing a team like Portland that covered the spread but failed to win the game, has earned a 40-18-1 record for 69% winning bets over the last 25 seasons.
That's a pretty good number.
So
I need a big sample size, though, John.
And if you don't believe me, it's actually up on sportsmemo.com for the world to see.
The global world.
Very nice.
Yep. So I guess that'll do it for this edition of the Manny's Pub Predictive Playbook show. Yeah. I really thank you guys for doing this. This is fun. I mean, it really is. I never look at the clock and realize that this is going on an hour 57.
We're changing the world
since we went, and that's a tribute, right, Tony? A tribute.
Changing the world one pub at a time.
And be sure to tell your wife and family members you learned the word Fibonacci, because I want to know how they respond.
Fibonacci. I'm gonna have to get a shirt.
Fib retracements, Tony.
I'm gonna have it embroidered tonight. I'm gonna call my my tailor.
He was an Italian mathematician, believe it or not.
That's what I was telling Rob Veno. You guys, Finn and Veno, have to get behind this guy. He's an Italian.
What I learned about this show tonight is I need to bring a 6-pack to the show instead of just. That's what I learned.
I don't think we were planning on going this long, but it was worth it. So
good weekend, guys. Good luck with everything.
You guys are on the NBA show on Thursdays, right?
That's Rob and I will be on Monday. Rob and I do Monday.
I'm lucky they let me on at all.
I think Tony's Thursday-ish, maybe with Rob, and then I'm Friday. So
there's going to be a slide in the next 2 weeks. That's going to be an NBA Fibonacci betting system of the day. I can promise you, I'm going to take that word in there.
That way, Rob's on with me, and then
make sure you don't misspell that. That's F-I-N-N-Anacci.
That's a fib.
Well, as long as it ends in a vowel, I'll take it.
There you go.
There you go. So for Rob Veno, Steve Merril, Tony Finn, and myself in the Predictive Playbook, have a good night, and may all the wins be yours.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.